Hello, and thanks for joining us for the Farming Today podcast with me, Kaz Graham. So, what do we have in this episode? Well, there's Chomper, a delightful saddleback pig, Donald Trump's $12 billion handout to US farmers, and a small orange and black beetle that can devastate potato crops. News today that it's been officially eradicated.
We can be very confident that this particular population has been eradicated, but obviously we need to remain vigilant.
More on the demise of the Colorado Beetle and why it's so important a little later. First, though, we're talking about rare and native breeds of livestock all this week. And in the world of rare breed pigs, young farmer Sebastian Carr is quite the celebrity. He keeps British saddlebacks, and a couple of years ago, at the tender age of just 13, he was named as the British Pig Association's new Pedigree Breeder of the Year. He got his first saddlebacks when he was 8, and they kept on the family farm in Dorset. Our reporter Fiona Clampin went to meet Seb and his mum Lissy on the farm near Sturminster Newton, east of Yeovil.
This is Chomper?
Yeah, we call her Chomper because when she was little she used to bite our boots. She was a menace really. She's in really good shape, so her bum, it doesn't just drop off, it's got a nice curve. You want a strong back. So that is practical in the sense when they're getting served by the boar, when they're carrying their piglets, you always want a good strong back, otherwise it'll just affect the pig's health. She's got good leg placement, so she's got 4 legs, each in each 4 corners of her body, which is where they need to be. Her ears are perfect, so you don't want pricked ears, you want not lopped ears, just want sort of stanced ears. They just sort of come down over the eye. And she's got those. They're really nice.
How much do you know about the history of the saddleback?
The saddleback used to be 2 different breeds. It used to be the Essex saddleback and the Wessex saddleback. And then due to declining numbers in the 1950s, they amalgamated the breeds, so they bred them together. It gave them a better breed, the British saddleback, which is what we have today.
Let's go on and feed these 3. So you're 15,
Yeah.
You're incredibly knowledgeable about these pigs.
Thank you.
Where does that come from?
Well, I just spent a lot of time, 7 years having them, just accumulated lots of knowledge, and especially with the shows. You go to the shows, there's lots of people there, they know a lot about pigs, and you can always take something away from those shows.
Lissy, were you breeding the pigs before Seb came along?
No.
No.
No. Do you know what? I used to be scared of pigs, and I've always had horses, and pigs and horses don't mix. But my father-in-law, he's worked with pigs all his life, and my husband had pigs. Seb's dad had pigs when he was younger, and there were pigs in the family. And I think it was possibly inevitable. But when Seb floated the idea when he was 8 about potentially having some pigs, we went off and bought, by chance, 4 pedigree saddlebacks.
Woke up Christmas Day 2018, went downstairs, opened up this present. It was a book on how to keep pigs. I thought, I won't get them this year, maybe next year. And then I opened the next present. It wasn't a present as such, it was a card. And it was this little poem about the 4 pigs that are outside. So I get my coat on over my pyjamas and we go out with a torch and we walk down the track and then we shine the light into this pigsty and there's 4 little pigs led in there, all snuggled up in the straw.
That's quite an amazing Christmas present.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I was actually quite shocked that I got them.
And did you know at the time what you were letting yourself in for?
No, definitely not. Looking out here now with all these muddy paddocks and 4 litters of pigs running outside, no, definitely not. It's just nice tending to animals, feeding them, making sure they have enough to drink, good bed, nice house.
So how do you feel about Seb's passion for the pigs?
It's cost us a lot of money. But equally, it's brought us a lot of joy, a lot of fun. Travelled all over the place, made tons and tons of lovely new friends, and it's opened doors that we never thought were even there, to be honest. It's a hobby, and at the same time we're preserving what is a rare breed. It's really important to try and preserve our national heritage, I think.
It's very much a family thing now. So little brother's got his own pigs. We're developing that new breed, the lamb race, into our herd. So I'd like to go into aeronautical engineering, really. So during that time, I don't think I'll be able to keep any pigs, but I'd definitely like to pick it back up later in life because I do enjoy it really.
That's Seb Carr with his saddleback pigs. Now, earlier this week, Donald Trump invited US farmers to the White House to announce a $12 billion farm aid package. It comes against a backdrop of the trade dispute with China and other countries too over tariffs, which have severely disrupted soybean exports and also hit farming profits. The White House says the bridge payments are to support farmers through what it calls temporary trade market disruptions and increased production costs until new trade deals and market access start improving profitability. The president said the payments were possible because of income raised by his new tariffs. But not all farmers are happy with the payout. Barbara Karlbach is a soybean farmer from Iowa.
China now doesn't want to buy from us anymore because of the tariffs, so they go to Brazil. Well, that's over 25% of our market share for soybeans that is now going somewhere else because of the tariffs. So I'm glad that he said that there's a lot of income from the tariffs so he can pay us off. But in the meantime, your market's destroyed.
Well, Ali Renison is director of SEC Newgate Consultancy and a former trade advisor to the government. I asked her how significant this payout to farmers is.
So obviously, this is not the first time under a Trump administration we've had a farm bailout or farm assistance program in light of tariffs, although the administration isn't wild about making that connection. So in 2018 to 2019, the farm bailout was about $28 billion. This is on top of general kind of $66 billion in farmer bailouts in the sort of big, beautiful bill on sort of spending over writ large that was passed in the last sort of 2 months. But I think the other thing you have to contextualize is that, you know, if you look at kind of what some of the losses that are occurring, particularly but not limited to sort of tariffs in sort of recent months, we're looking at $44 billion in losses from agriculture in the U.S. So it is not as big as it was last time, but it is comparable to what China effectively was paying last year, which was about $12 billion for soybeans.
How much of a political act is this aid package? President Trump trying to keep the farmers happy, because farmers have been really cheesed off about the tariffs, haven't they? And also signalling to the country that he is rolling out policies to cut the price of food.
The politicization of this is well underway. Keep in mind that we have the congressional midterms next year. Some of the campaigning for that is already starting. And I have never seen the Democrats use as much as they have in the last 24 hours, interviews, vox pops with farmers saying, we want trade, we don't want aid. This is a Band-Aid, this is a sticking plaster. You know, on the other hand, I would say that in a lot of sort of farming constituencies, while they might be sort of critical of what Trump is doing on trade, a lot of these wider farming communities, they're still going to vote for Trump. But I think that the administration is very cognizant that they need to be seen to be doing X to support the farmers, even if they're not going to explicitly link it to as being a consequence of the administration's trade policies.
So do you think that's going to affect the UK? Can we expect more US soy being imported into the UK as a result of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that when the sort of the outline framework agreement was announced, and obviously it's not a full fat trade deal yet, the two sides are still negotiating. But when it was announced back in May, the sort of outline, I think a lot of the agricultural sector was caught off guard by the concession that was put up by the UK on the ethanol duty-free quota. Brooke Rollins also, I think, was trying to reassure her own farming constituencies that because there was a provision in there that talked about, well, both sides are going to maintain their rules around imports for food standards, which is a concession to the UK to say, we're not going to force you to take hormone-treated beef. You know, keep in mind, like 85 to 90% of livestock, you know, beef and cattle that is reared in the U.S. is treated with hormones. She talked about, well, ethanol isn't going to be it. We're also going to be pushing for other concessions on sort of market access. So I definitely think that watch this space. They'll be pushing for market access in other sort of livestock and agri sectors.
And how important is the UK as an export market for US farmers? Because, I mean, the USDA, the Department for Agriculture, just mentioned the trade deal with the UK, in particular beef and ethanol. Is that really important to them or maybe not so much?
Out of the EU, size-wise, it's not the biggest deal in the world because of the size of the market. But at the moment, you know, and I've just come back from Washington and speaking to members of Congress there, particularly sort of Republican members of Congress, they see the kinship between the US and the UK as a way to sort of try and, even if it's a bit more symbolic than substantive in terms of overall number relative to, let's say, a market like the EU or Asian countries, they definitely want to see and expect Trump will be able to do deals with the UK to open up more of its agricultural market to US agriculture, certainly.
That's Ali Renison. And she mentioned Brooke Rollins there. Brooke Rollins is the US Agriculture Secretary. Now, farmers are being asked for their views as part of a consultation to ensure fairness in the supply chain for arable crops. The government wants to hear from growers, processors and industry bodies over the next 8 weeks as part of fair dealing reforms. It says it aims to give producers stronger protections against unfair practices. Now, a little good news, which is always nice for a change. The Colorado Beetle, which is a major threat to potato crops, has been officially eradicated from the UK. It was last identified here in 2023. It's a very distinctive-looking orangey-yellow beetle with black stripes running down its back, and it can completely strip the leaves of potatoes and other leafy plants like tomatoes and aubergines. Professor Nicholas Spence is the Chief Plant Health Officer at the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs.
Well, the Colorado beetle is a big threat, particularly to our potato sector. And the value of our potato industry is about $1.5 billion per year.
Tell me what eradication actually means. I mean, how do you know it's gone?
So since the infestation was first detected in July 2023, we've had a comprehensive programme of surveillance and monitoring and no detection of the pest. We are able to now declare it eradicated.
People might be listening saying, well, we had one beetle a couple of years ago and now you've got rid of it. Why is that such a big deal? Why is it important?
Well, this particular outbreak affected a farmer very severely, and it's also had an impact on our trade. So we haven't been able to export potatoes from Kent to the Canary Islands for the last 3 years. And that's a trade that's worth about £10 million a year. It not only affects the farmer where the infestation was found, but it can have a wider impact on trade and also our status as a pest-free area.
And how confident can we be that the Colorado beetle has gone for good? Because, I mean, it has been eradicated in the UK before, hasn't it? But then it's come back.
Yes, that's right. We can be very confident that this particular population has been eradicated, but obviously we need to remain vigilant because there's an ongoing possibility of further introductions in the future. And particularly this pest is a very good hitchhiker. We sometimes intercept it in produce, and it is established in France. So some produce coming from France, we do find it, which is why it's really important that industry, the public are vigilant and report it if they see it. It's a very distinctive pest.
Are our border controls good enough to keep it out, would you say?
Border controls can look at crops that are coming in through that system, but these things can also hitchhike through other means. So it's actually very difficult to manage it completely at the border. And it's even possible that these beetles can blow over. So we don't quite know where the one came from in 2023. We weren't able to trace it. We don't think it came with the potatoes that were used to plant.
And does climate change mean that we might see more of them in the future?
Well, certainly climate change means that any beetles that do arrive or hitchhike are likely to become established because the climatic conditions are more favourable. As with many insects, high temperatures mean that often they can develop their life cycle more rapidly and possibly be more successful at establishing. So we do see climate change as a risk factor. However, we are finding historically fewer imports with hitchhiking beetles. So I think that reflects higher levels of biosecurity and higher levels of awareness amongst industry and the public so that we can detect these things quickly so that they don't become established.
Professor Nicholas Spence from Defra. And that's all from us for today. I'm Kaz Graham. The producer is Rebecca Rooney, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.